Not really, because I'm not going to do that.
It's working.
Well, I'm in education, but abnormal psychology.
What'd you get in that? You get an abnormal psych? Dude, I'm so pissed because I didn't, and you know why I didn't? Because the random attendance bullshit.
I've got this on, by the way, just so you'll know. Yeah, nobody really heard what you said particularly, but I'm letting you know.
Abnormal psychology is awesome.
All right.
That's what we're talking about.
Exactly.
I didn't even know. I was just letting you know.
Abnormal psychology.
She should understand me perfectly.
Where are you taking it?
I mean, why do you think I understand?
Where are you taking it?
We all get along so well.
We are crazy.
We are all the test subjects. We are psychology.
Lars, what kind of topics do they talk about at the state GA most of the time, besides this? Okay, well, I assume this isn't the normal ones, but I've missed all of them, and you haven't, so I thought I'd ask. I'm looking forward to what the topics are after this is dealt with.
If anyone is not at the SERCO, for the GA, get over here. Or don't.
Greetings. I think we have options.
We have a greeter. Don, are you a greeter? I'm a greeter. What's up? I think we have 4 guests.
You said circle jerk, but I much prefer circle jerk. I think that definitely works a lot better than right? Like, you look interested. What happened? We're talking about circle jerk. Oh. Block. It's not a circle, it's a circle jerk. It's all mental masturbation.
Cut it out. Oh, wait. Cut that out.
Okay, I'm just announcing I'm leaving for Gaia Grove, and there's directions by the information booth. There's a phone number. If you'd like to come visit, you're welcome to. And we'll do tours tomorrow, too. I'll be back here in the morning. Bye.
Thank you, Joanna. Thank you. So, just wondering, are we getting back to GA?
Tommy Butler.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tommy's looking at the wrong one.
Yeah.
That was really awesome. Can you do it again? Like, get up and like go back and like
Do it backwards. Do it again backwards.
do it again backwards. That's even better.
You can jump backwards from the same spot.
Are you?
Yes, you are on Slash next. I forgot your name, but I was going to call out Fireblower because I don't remember your name. Fireblower active.
I am fire now.
So,
I'm seeing it. They're full of shit.
pseudo proposal, you can shoot it down and discuss it if you wish, but before everyone like jumps in and like let me explain more. But I'm gonna use these 3 words: an all-male feminist militia. An all-male feminist militia, elected and consented upon by the female GA, accountable solely to the female GA. That shoot, I lost my train of thought. Train of shot? Yeah. Good. I have a little bit of brain damage from a car accident, so I'm going to recollect my thoughts. Alright, so it's the members are consented upon by the women's only GA. And the decision in the punishments dictated by the women's GA is carried out by them. The only reason I say all male is simply because certain legal issues can arise from situations that involve male and female disputes as to not escalate them, because I know when we had issues at our camp involving females, it was easier to have a female arbiter the situation. That way, like, it wouldn't escalate further. So, that's good.
Well, I think you mean well, and I think that men as a brigade of people going out and trying to stand up for women and stand up against men that they think might not be treating women nicely is a really good idea. I don't think that as women it should be our job to choose which ones are the ones that would be doing that. We would actually even know what that would look like, because I mean, how would we identify which ones would? I mean, I don't want to have anyone under me as an order follower. I would like everyone to make their own decisions.
I see your hand, and there's still people on staff from before we broke. Jen, are you still going to stay? Because you're actually next on staff. And then Lars, Whitney, Evan, and Katrina.
Okay.
Katerina, I'm sorry.
I forgot that I was on staff, but, sorry now?
Yeah.
Okay, so Evan and I can sense that was a really shitty reason to take a beautiful walk. Okay, so Evan. I think the only thing I really want to say at this point is the people who question whether or not this conversation take place, I would really like to encourage you to know how disturbing I find that. I don't know, that there were people who didn't think that this should be voiced and talked about.
Who?
Is upsetting to you.
You're speaking for people.
Not that I think it should have, dominated and been a huge part of this meeting, but to say that there shouldn't be space for it, or
Who
that,
said that?
maybe it didn't need to happen. Because I think it's 1 in 4 women is raped. There's just so many statistics of the ways that women are struggling to be alive and to thrive in this world, and I think it's really shitty that we wouldn't want to encourage new process within this movement to stop that.
And
I had a
point of
question.
information, Carl had a point of information, and you had a point of clarification.
No, a question.
The information on that is definitely that there were multiple people that did not hear the part about this is an issue about a man walking up to a woman in a towel and saying, "You're lucky there's 3 of you here."
Dude.
There were multiple people, including a man who was accidentally judged for possibly being the guy, that didn't understand that that was the scenario. So, I think that maybe even the other gentleman that asked that question might not have heard the full context of it. So I'm putting out the information that this is about a gentleman saying to a woman in a towel, "You're lucky that there's 3 of you here."
I think it should continue to be a consensus and not all male or all female when it comes to dealing with the situation, because either a male or a female could be violated in the same way.
So Lars, Whitney, Evan, and Katerina.
Did I forget my question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Lisa,
let the
I'm
men
sorry,
ask
I
theirs.
forgot.
Can you put me at the end?
I just wondered, did somebody actually question that should be dealt with? I asked a question to try to understand what was going on, but I wasn't suggesting they shouldn't. So if it's somebody else, fine, but I didn't know people were actually questioning having this, and if anybody was referring to me asking a question, and I hope they weren't, I wasn't against it. Okay, great. Some other people you heard. Okay.
Yeah, I think they're speaking
Bruce, you're welcome to get on stack. There's 5 people before you.
He's answering me.
answering. All right, I thought I heard that he said, "I'm glad that there's 3 of you here," not that you're lucky that. That's what I heard. I'm glad. I thought it was something that wasn't even relative to this situation. I didn't know he was making an incantation like he was going to do something. I heard it differently. There wasn't a lot of clarity when the story was being told. I understood that he saw the sign. I like to say this too is, they took over the fire, and it was cold out this morning. I wanted to go to the fire because my feet were wet, and I couldn't because I took it over. And so the way I understood it was he might have saw the sign, walked up to the fire, and he said, "I'm glad that there's 3 of you here." That's the way I heard it. I didn't realize he might have made a sexual incantation saying that you're lucky there's 3 of you here, that he would have done something.
Do you realize it
So
now?
I heard it in a different context.
Get
I
it
just
now?
wanted to clarify that.
Do you get it now?
Amber.
Point of clarification.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Direct response.
Clarification should be before direct response.
Yeah, I would put a clarification.
So that goes before direct response?
Clarification goes before point of information as well, I believe.
They're all the same thing.
Were you there?
I was over there. I wasn't
Okay,
up
so
here,
you
though.
didn't witness it, is what I'm saying.
Well, what was your version of the story?
Whoa!
Point of process! And timeout.
Can I get a vibe check for a moment?
Jackie, vibes are pretty
Or direct response to the question, maybe?
torn up. Mixed.
He was saying that he didn't hear what was going on correctly here. He was saying that he didn't know. That's all he's saying.
But you get it now. Okay.
Okay, I just want to clarify
He's
that
got
the
it.
women didn't take over the fire, they were using it as planned. So, toilets been used, can't enter, and another plan like that.
Thanks for fixing that.
Whitney's next on staff.
I appreciate Robbie's sentiment, but I don't like the idea, I never really liked the idea of using a middleman, and now we're using a middleman man. And, so, and this is, oh, I'm sorry. Just that reminding people that when we are in the women's GA, it's also a time for men to play a supportive role that women are often kind of led into, and I think creating a separate group just for men to protect, like, kind of, sort of like to protect the men, even though if the roles were reversed, we would be doing the same thing, just saying we should be playing the supportive role. And I would like to also take this time to make a proper proposal for what I had suggested earlier, and it seems like people were feeling pretty cool about, would be, like, actually emailing Occupy Miami, explaining this, okay, formal proposal, making a formal, writing a formal email to Occupy Miami explaining the situation and requesting or suggesting that they make this a topic of conversation at their General Assembly. Maybe present it to them by SERCO. How does everybody feel about that?
2 minutes 40.
Point of clarification, point of information, point of information.
I think these questions are all relevant to your proposal in terms of if I agree, like, who would be writing it, does it mean we would be spending the entire, time here forming, that email?
He's asking this because he can speak up.
Okay. Does that mean that we would all come up with the language and everything to do with that email before we leave here today? And, you know, I guess these are just relevant questions if it's going to be from SERCO. You know what I'm saying?
Point of information is that this is a Florida General Assembly, so it seems weird for us to be able to do something on behalf of the Southeast region.
Yeah.
The individual also has spent much time in Occupy Tampa, especially in the past month. I do not know where he is going. In the event that he go back to Tampa and he is there, the situation will be addressed. And we will also communicate with Miami, especially if there's any further incidents. It'll be communicated.
Nothing to hold you back right now.
I think Amber had you're on stack, and Amber had a point of clarification.
I was going to say that I don't think it necessarily needs to be everyone who would be involved in a letter being written, if a letter was written. I think that it would be up to the person who was right there and was probably most significantly disturbed by what happened to decide what she might want it to say. Kind of like people get to fill out their own, after rape happens information. If you have the time, that's cool. You can hang out and help them, but if you don't, well, they still need to get through whatever happened.
I just want to make clear that this is not for opinions. This is not for opinions. These are for questions or points of information. That's it. So do this and say I think. I'm going to point of process.
So, Jen had, I have your response, right? Jen had a direct response.
I would like to suggest as an amendment to the proposal that I am able to write an individual letter and say that I was encouraged by the Florida Assembly to do so, and sign it as myself. And if anyone would like to participate in the creation of that letter or suggest other things that came from this conversation, it will be on Facebook under the SERCO working group as the man who would not cook breakfast. The man who would not cook breakfast.
Okay, so here's how the stack goes. Evan, Katerina, Lars, Jasmine, Katie. Point of process?
That was an official proposal, right? So aren't we?
No.
Oh no. Oh, okay. I thought
Yeah.
that was. I thought we
Yeah.
decide on official
Yes.
proposals right after they're made. So do we temp check an official proposal, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It was right.
It was.
It was.
Sorry,
So
I'm sorry to be such a geek, but I didn't hear a proposal. I heard that.
She said she'd like to make a proposal.
Okay.
She was making an amendment to the proposal that she had made.
I'm sorry, could you not interrupt me, please? I didn't hear a proposal. She may have used the words I propose, but what I heard was that I volunteer to do this thing, and if anybody would like to join me in doing it, then it will be on the SERCO Facebook page. I may have misheard, but that's what I heard.
The proposal would be that I, in the language of that letter, state that I had the support of this assembly to write the letter. And that's the only thing I would need you all to consent upon, is that you encourage me as an individual to write it.
Okay.
Time.
More time? Do we want to finish stack? Do you want to close stack, finish out stack, and then just end the topic? Do you like that?
Would that mean that at the end of the stack we are deciding to there's a proposal being approved at the end of stack, right? I mean, if we're not extending time, well, we're getting an approval or disapproval out of this at the end, right? That's the question.
I think that she's like.
Point of process.
You cannot do this and say I think. You cannot do this and say I think. You cannot do this.
I think is my way of translating. I think what's going on is I think she just said she was going to do that, and we already all consensus that it's great that she's going to do that, and we support her. And now stack means that anybody else who has something to say about it is going to say it, and then we're done, we move on.
This still is not like, I just want to clarify, you still like, you can't do this and say I think. You do this and ask a question, a clarifying question as to what is going on with what somebody previously said. There's a point of information.
Point of information, we have still not found a way to deal with this in the future. We've taken care of the immediate problem, but not any future occurrences of this.
Point of process?
I'm wondering if we could just are we out of time right now?
Well, yeah, we never,
Okay.
the time's ended, we were discussing how the stack's going and all that.
So I'm wondering if we could just add a little bit more time and keep going with stack and sort of see where we're at with it, because it sounds like we're not sure to me that people have different opinions about what's going on next, so maybe we could just sort of see what happens for a second. Is that cool with everybody?
5 minutes? Yeah?
No.
It's same time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Okay, so Evan, Katerina, Lars, Justin.
I'm sorry, you never gave me my stack. I was before Katerina.
Yeah. Wait,
You are next.
Okay,
You're
I said you're that.
I said you were next.
So, I have what I think.
It just occurred to me, we already have on the agenda the response to this. It's flowers in her hair. And I hear us wanting to add time to talk about long-term, or it's already there. wanted to point that out. That's not obvious.
I'm not sure
I guess my feeling and my sense of the group is that there's just more bubbling up, and I was hoping that we could just like give it a few more minutes, because this is sort of like there's a lot of different things going on, it feels like to me, and I was just making a suggestion to give it a little bit more time and then like see what happens. That's just one idea. If everybody likes that, then cool.
So, do we want 5 more minutes on this topic? Cool, we got 5 more minutes on this topic.
Yeah, I had something that I don't know if it's a formal proposal. I suspect that it's not, but something perhaps to encourage us to do in the future that might help deal with these issues. I know that, you know, as someone who, you know, I guess biologically is male, but who spiritually and emotionally feels female to themselves, have issues perhaps with, you know, the different genders being segregated and that kind of thing, but I don't think they're important enough to not have that happen. I think it's more important to have the ability for the women to meet separately and the men to meet separately. I think that it would be productive to, if we're going to have something on the schedule, like a women's meeting, to also put something on the schedule like a men's meeting. I think that in general women tend to be better than men at perceiving the need for such things, and perhaps that could be a service that could be provided, that even if the men don't suggest let's have a men's meeting because they're having women's meeting, maybe if it were proposed at the same time. You see what I'm saying is that the two things should go hand in hand, it seems to me. And that way we would avoid this awkward feeling of, oh, well, the women are getting to have this, why aren't the men, that kind of thing. Oh, well, because you didn't propose it in advance. Oh, well, we didn't think to, you know. We avoid that back and forth, and you know, if nobody shows up to the men's meeting, great, it was still on the schedule, and there can be no allegations of unfairness there. But I think that it would be really cool to have that them both on the schedule, again, for the reasons that I stated. I think whoever it was suggested that, you know, if they're on different times, the women do the support thing when the men are meeting, the men do the support thing when the women are meeting, that seems elegant to me. I also just wanted to say that there's been a lot of abusive process, I feel. We've had too many direct responses, people are having to wait too long on staff, and there's been a lot of abusive points of information and clarification. I hope we can avoid that.
Speaking of which, I have a direct response. I'm putting myself on staff. Men or anybody was totally able to add themselves to the schedule. The schedule was up there. There was room for spontaneous workshops, spontaneous groups. So I would just like to say, empower yourself. If you needed that, you could put it up.
Yeah, I wasn't, again, suggesting something for the past. I was...
Yeah, it's a process. I'd like to propose something.
2.5 minutes.
Kim, how does the group feel about eliminating the direct response so that we can follow Stack and just stick with Stack, and so you get on Stack if you want to talk? I mean, anybody, it's like...
For the rest of the meeting?
For the rest of the meeting. For the rest of the meeting.
How about for this issue?
For this issue. How do we feel about doing it for this issue? I mean, I don't really feel comfortable calling that consensus.
Denise, Karen, Mitch.
I think in the interest of fostering respect for the process, that we shouldn't ignore the problem and not use direct response. We should ask people to use it properly, and like I think that you've been doing a good job of pointing out, like, that's not what a point of clarification is. That's what I think helps get people to stop doing that.
We don't use direct response in Tampa, like, at all, except for when the person is making a proposal, and that person who's making the proposal can direct response anybody who's on Stack. Other than that, we just get on Stack to talk. It seems to us to be a needless symbol to have, unless you're making a proposal.
Clarification.
Yeah, I don't know how this is done.
Okay, there's like 7 people on staff, so the next part.
He had clarification.
You have a point of clarification.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
2 points of process though.
I guess I'm just, I want to own that I feel feel uncomfortable, then I'm hearing the same voices over and over, and I'm getting frustrated.
Was there another point of process?
Yeah, I have one. So if there's 7 people on stack about the direct response issue, the easy way to get rid of that stack is for you to withdraw your proposal.
I don't think people want to stack for that. I think people want to stack for everything else.
I think they were, how many people were on stack for the other thing?
Time, and I don't think we ever talked about it, ever, during that 5 minutes. We didn't talk about what we were supposed to, just so you guys know. And we just ran out of time.
What do y'all want to do? More time? Or do we want to, what do we want to do?
And what we want to do in the future to talk about.
So could I say what I think? Can I just say something? Me being a boy and all. Jesus. So I heard that Evan and then Kat and then me and then Jasmine were on stack, and then the next thing I heard was that you proposed that we eliminate direct response, and then a bunch more people got on stack. Is that what happened?
But those people already spoke, and the other one, some of the stack was the same names on both, so I'm not sure if they were specific for that issue or not.
So could I propose that we just clear stack and start fresh because everyone is confused, and we just do a little vibe check because there's a lot of frustration? This is a hard subject.
I need fingers, guys. Like, I can't make a decision if nobody's wagging. That is consensus to me, so...
There's 2 dissents right here.
What can you do? Would you like to state your dissent?
Dissent? Well, quite clearly, I just don't think that we should start fresh because some people have been waiting on staff forever. And, like, I still know what I want to say about the issue, and I don't think that those people still don't know, and if they don't know, then they can just say, put me at the end of staff, quite simply. Like, I don't see why everyone else should be subjected to that same exact thing, you know?
So are the two people who are dissenting wanting to speak? Because personally, I'd be all right with them just getting on stack, and then we just start fresh and keep going.
Okay, here's the thing. Katarina's already on stack, and I couldn't tell.
Evan.
And Evan.
My dissent was, if I might explain my dissent was because I just experienced having to wait since well before the break for my stack until just now, and I knew that Kat had been on stack just as long as I had. She raised her hand right after I did, and I didn't think that it was fair for anyone in that position to have to get back on stack in some order when you've already been waiting over 20 minutes.
Would we be okay with allowing Evan and Katarina to be on stack?
I'm not on stack.
Oh, you're not on stack?
No.
Cut it?
I just spoke.
Well, Katarina was the next person on stack, then Lars, and Jasmine, Mitch, and Nancy.
We didn't make a decision about whether or not we want to clear stack, or whether or not we want to just keep doing stack. What do you want to do?
I don't see why the people that don't know if they want to be on stack or not could just say, put me at the end of stack. Like, that's just simple to me. But, alright, so, actually, I'm going to ask to put me at the end of stack because now I've gotten all jumbled up because of this. So, you can put me at the end of stack, would be great.
So 5 minutes is starting now.
Vibe check.
My vibes are pretty low, just to be honest.
I'm doing on stack, right?
Did we clear stack or what?
We didn't clear stack.
No.
We did not get consensus to clear stack.
Mark stack.
Lars.
So I want to appreciate everyone for negotiating all the emotions that are coming up. This is maybe the oldest oppression between, this division between men and women, and like figuring out how we're going to address it is no minor issue, right? It's also my experience that when stuff gets hard in meetings, then when we come up with ideas of how to make the process better and try to negotiate that, it never actually works. In some ways, there's just no way through but to feel the feelings and just kind of trust, okay, it's a mess. we'll see what happens, and maybe put a finite time on it. I don't think we're going to come up with a solution today that will satisfy our community. I do think that I actually am echoing several voices from earlier saying that it's really good to talk about this because it's prefigurative politics in action. It's us figuring out how we're really going to create a healthy community. And I want to support Jen for bringing it up to begin with, and the other folks who have spoken about feeling like boundaries were crossed or whatever, and bringing that out and trusting us to respond in a supportive way. So, I wanted to say one thing which somebody earlier said, the phrase a verbal lynch mob, which kind of like went ding, because I don't think that talking about somebody crossing a boundary should be compared to a lynch mob at all, because they're really different. Thank you for laughing. That should be pretty freaking obvious. It was a joke. But anyway, I just wanted to say that, that struck me, and of course everybody, it's a free world. Everybody can say what they want. Okay, so this is your fault because last night we passed this declaration really easily, and so it inspired me to think, well, one of the reasons that I think one of the things that keeps coming up for Occupy Gainesville, and I think also for Occupy whatever, is that we're dealing with a bunch of people with a different worldview, right? We're coming with different politics. I think there's a lot of folks here who take it as a given that there is such a thing as privilege, skin privilege, male privilege, heteronormativity. There are also people who don't see that. There's some of us who agree that the idea of colorblindness or that we're beyond sexism, whatever, is actually a mask for prejudice. And there are others who think that we should just act like we already live in that world, and then those problems will go away. That's a very real issue in our communities. So one way to address it is for us to start with some agreements, right? And I'm just going to read this thing that I wrote, which is totally imperfect and stupid, but I'm going to read it and as a way of like putting it out there and continuing the conversation. And I guess at this point, because I'm just gauging the vibe, I don't think we should try to reach consensus on it. Maybe people afterward, unless like just everybody agrees, like it's good. Okay, I'll finish up, Jasmine. Thank you. So I'll just read it. Having friends and family who have survived the damaging effects, including assaults, abusive relationships, and mental health issues of a range of privileges and hierarchies, such as sexism, racism, and heteronormativity, we take it as a unifying point of community and acknowledge 1, male privilege, white skin privilege, heteronormativity, and other prejudices exist. 2, these prejudices create ongoing problems, including destroying community and lives. 3, that as a community of conscience, we all share responsibility for creating safe and healthy spaces by opposing this prejudice and other action. 4, that people who have been historically targeted by violence and other equally disruptive means have the right to create and determine safe spaces for themselves, such as women-only space, queer-only space, etc. 5, that understanding and supporting these ideas is a prerequisite for participating with us.
How do we feel about that statement? Does anybody have any strong dissent to that statement at all? Like,
Do you have a class?
I said like a friendly amendment. At the beginning it just says having friends and family. It doesn't include us.
Oh.
Friends, family, and fellow occupiers? And in some cases, spouse?
friends, family, and selves?
Having
So-
friends and
I don't know how to
family
word it.
and ourselves having survived.
Yeah.
It needs a modifier so that it's not always, like, we may all have friends and family, but we may not be inclusive of that.
Having
Okay.
had families, friends, and possibly ourselves.
It's like possibly, it might not be possible.
Many of us and our friends and family.
But like you said, we don't need to have consensus on the semantics.
Right.
So can we get consensus on the general idea, spirit of what that just said? We got consensus, so we have that after 40 minutes of discussion.
Yeah, I did want a direct response because I think what I said earlier has been mischaracterized at least once in this discussion, because I started off by saying that incidents where women in Occupy are made to feel uncomfortable are very important and need to be discussed. At the same time, it's only effective if when these issues come to the surface, the person who's been accused of them is confronted by the organisers. I mean, as it is today, I don't know when people found out about it, but this person was allowed to walk around for several hours, go off, and then we talk about it. And talking about things is important, but my point was, you know, that wait until someone leaves and then just coming up with, you know, everyone talking about an individual who's actually not there to give their side of the story. And, you know, part of justice is that you don't just have a one-sided account of things. Even though I think this person probably was out of line. Sorry, for me that is a verbal lynch mob if you only hear one, if you're only going to go on one side of the story.
I just wanna be clear that we're definitely out of time on this issue. So do we want to either cut stack or do we want to close stack? What do we want to do? Like, do we want to close it as is, leave it as is, and let stack finish out? How do we feel about this?
I'll keep that in mind.
Can I get fingers, please? Fingers. Yes, cool. Okay.
We had a direct response, and then it, no, so we had Arena on Dissent, and Nancy on staff.
Board process. There are way too many side conversations going on
Bye,
without board
Jack.
process.
Bye, Jack!
Okay, so my direct response was that it's not that we're not going to bring it up to the person, that is the idea, but we have to have a way of doing it that isn't going to come at him without thinking it through and make things worse because you come at it from like something that is going to be, he's going to be on the defense, it's not a productive way of dealing with it, so we have to understand how to address the situation in like a light that will actually have some type of positive change, not just like, you know, hey, you just did this. That's not going to be productive. So we have to understand how we can do that. But the goal is to bring it up to him, and it is to have it be resolved. And
After
I wish
gossiping.
it would have come up earlier and we could have got a hold of him, but that's just how it happened. Like, we have to figure out how to do it the best possible.
There's a point of information.
Also, often when anybody feels attacked or threatened, you can't like say, why didn't you go right away? Because they were feeling insecure, they were feeling uncomfortable. You know, it would be nice if everybody who was victimized could immediately report it and seek solitude, but that's not always the case. There's a lot of emotions going on, a lot of processing that needs to happen, a lot of meditation. So as far as it being up to the person who was the victim of the incident, it's being their responsibility to seek justice right away, that's just not going to be the case, and often isn't. So just taking that into consideration.
Point of information, I'm sorry.
No, that's a question, isn't it? In the future,
we have an incident where somebody violates our mores or
It just won't be a
or rules or whatever, our social conscience.
Louder.
Accused
Louder.
of it. Accused of
And
it.
this happens next time, are we gonna spend an hour and a half in absentia of principals? Or would it be wiser to come up with a mechanism for dealing with all violations as a means of confronting individuals who break our rules, and not just one incident at a time and reinvent the wheel each time? Is there any such a thing in this organization already, or do we need a court of law, so to speak?
So that's not really a point of information.
Yeah,
He asked a question.
It was a question. Who's next on stack? Oh.
There's no stack running right
There's
now.
no stack moving.
Because we're debating.
Response to his question, right?
I'm sorry, I was out of the loop on that.
Hey.
There's two people. We only have two freaking people.
Hey, calm down. Would you like your direct response?
Alright, yeah, so it's not just about that one particular incident, because I think that the issue is definitely opened up to how we deal with it, in the next time it pops up, because it's not unusual. And, it was not just, like, about that one person, it was about how to deal with it, together in a group, not just talking about it,
Nothing like talking straight to somebody.
yeah, later we were supposed to talk about, the wonderful ideas that we came up with at our women's meeting about how to, deal with rape and how to deal with preventing rape and things like that. But, we've been just spending a lot of time on this, and it was good to talk about it a lot, but, I don't necessarily think that it's going anywhere right now. I kind of think that people who have come in later are also not caught up on completely all of the things that, made up the situation, and that the crosstalk and the questions have confused people more, because, some people thought it was one person, so they were throwing some information out, some people thought it was someone else, so other information was flashing. And, I think she seems like she has a good idea, and are you fairly content with what you've come up with to do, and you feel pretty good about that? I mean, I suppose we should go to just asking.
About writing a letter?
Yeah.
I do. The only concern I have at this point is we've spent so much time, and I'm committed to making dinner for my friends tonight, and I will not be able to do that and have the flowers in their hair conversation in the order that it is right now.
I believe you can't direct response to direct response.
You're probably right.
Just to be clear. Also, would we maybe like to just end stack now? Like, just stop this conversation? Or do people really want to stay on stack and talk about it?
The two people that were on staff were Katerina and Jasmine.
Do you want to make that proposal clear first, and actually?
Would we like to just end this conversation now, regardless of who is on stack? Or would we like, that's what it is. Would we like to just end the conversation now, regardless of who's on stack?
I'm just doing a point of press because I had a suggestion to just change a couple things, the order on the agenda that I think would address this.
Okay.
And that's just to move the flowers in their hair discussion to next.
Because she needs.
How do we feel about moving the flowers in their hair discussion to next instead of talking about May Day next? Alright, we like it. So we're gonna do that. Actually, we're not talking about May Day. Okay. So we're gonna do this. Okay. So
Fine, check!
I wish I'd caught that on camera.
I have a clarification for both payers. In Tallahassee, at least the way we do it, my understanding is that direct response, information, and clarification are all supposed to be short, as in 1 or 2 sentences. Is that the way it's done other places? Specifically asking about the direct response here.
Direct response here. I don't know anything about the direct response.
What I mean, what are we doing here?
Would somebody like to
It was an
specify?
Athens process.
No, they.
Oh, I thought someone from here said it was an AFTRA
No,
process.
that's the,
Sorry.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
We've adopted direct response, but we didn't stipulate probably other issues that come up.
Would somebody from here like to specify what a direct response means? Exactly, what that entails.
So for Gainesville, it's just, something that can't wait on staff, but I don't believe that we have set a time limit on how long direct responses should be that I know of. There might be an expectation.
The way we use direct response it's usually like one sentence, like blah blah blah. And that's, it's not like a if it goes back and forth, then that's not a direct response.
Okay, from now, how do we feel about from now on, if somebody does a direct response that is more than 1 or 2 sentences, they get point of process and
The problem is they'll be waiting so long to say it that they won't remember what it is, and they'll probably have thought of an entire conversation.
it doesn't matter because there's process and we have to follow process and going like this was never meant to be having long-winded conversations.
Point of information. For about 30 minutes of the past conversation, the majority of the time spent speaking was by people doing direct responses as opposed to people on staff.
Exactly.
There's
a point of process.
I just have another suggestion. Maybe we can, okay, so I just want to reiterate the step up, step back thing. Just people who are speaking a lot, maybe just really reconsider and just wait a little bit longer. And then also just on a related note, maybe we can add a little bit of, I feel this sense of urgency in the group and frustration, and maybe we can take a deep breath before we speak. Maybe we can add a little bit of space in between all this stuff, because we are doing a lot of, I don't know. I don't know exactly how to phrase that or whatever, but I know we want to hurry up and get this done, but I have this idea maybe that if we give a little room for people to consider, we really need to say this urgent thing right now or whatever, maybe that will help. I don't know. My last suggestion, I guess, wasn't that good to keep talking about this, so maybe
Okay, so as of right now, the parameters of a direct response are 1 or 2 sentences, or you will be point of process.
That's it.
That's it. So, shall we move on to the next topic and get off of this topic and talk about other productive things? Well, it's going to be a similar topic, but it'll be more directed. So, who wants to talk about this? Because I don't know what this is. So,
13 minutes?
Yes, 13 minutes, which is honest.
Flowers in the hair.
Okay, so I can start off. Okay. So at the Women's G.A., Gato from Athens brought up this little campaign or whatever that she's starting called Flowers in Their Hair, and it's men and women, or female, and they go out and it's about promoting consent and going and talking to bartenders about communicating things. The bartender part, yeah. Going out on bathroom stalls and writing what is consent, and at bars at night when women are walking home and they appear intoxicated, saying, "Do you need me to walk you home?" Or if they're with groups of 2, yeah, a man and a female, not men by themselves doing this, but so these people will go up and address women who look intoxicated, make sure they get home safely, or make sure that the person that they're with, are you okay with going home with this person right now, or are you expecting something to happen, and just making sure that, just promoting that kind of awareness and response.
So, Amber and then Whitney.
Yeah, so, I wrote down some of the things that they said because I wanted to make sure that I brought them home to Tampa. Things like handing out condoms with information about what consent is. One of the things they would write on bathroom one of the things they would write on bathroom mirrors is I know you're not a rapist, you know you're not a rapist, always get consent before touching. And I thought that was a good one. Guys and girls team up, flowers in their hair, yeah.
Louder.
Whitney, then Jen.
It was also my understanding that part of what they'd be teaching the bartenders is how to, I guess, to promote them addressing when they feel like somebody might have been roofied, and also how to identify somebody who potentially could have been roofied. So I guess she's working on a manual that we can use to help teach bartenders about that.
Okay. Taking what Cindy was talking about yesterday in the workshop on setting goals and then breaking it down to tactics, the goal that we talked about with this is the return of a safe space where women can be beautiful and sexy. And the traditional ritual for that is the Mayfair celebration, Beltane, maypole dancing. And since the Occupy movement has already embraced that day, which is also identified as an international Labor Day, that we have changed in the United States so that we know when to stop wearing white at the end of summer. There's this reclaiming of May Day, and we want to do that on both levels, both for the labor part and also for women, and being able to safely express their sexuality, femininity in a way, and re-educate men on what it means to be in the presence of this and how to respond to this in a healthy way. And reintroducing consensus and consent, and using that as part of this movement. That's what the women who met this morning felt came from this weekend together in that conversation. And so why I wanted to see this on the agenda for this meeting is how are we going to go back and communicate this to the state, and then from the state to the whole movement, because this is something that does not need to be just Florida. We want to get this really, across the entire Occupy movement where it's relevant, whatever cultures it's relevant. And we feel it is here, and that's up for every individual occupation to figure out. But one thing we talked about, the flowers in their hair, and there is a gender neutral pronoun for a good reason, that this is not just about women, but really all expression or consensual sex expression of duties. This is not limited to just women. So that makes it a little easier for you all to remember. We're going to see if we can get a website up quickly to at least start organizing the ideas of this. And then maybe, this might be one of those projects that has a dual identity, that it's both owned by Occupy for having birthed it, but then it also is very accessible to young girls. The correspondence between prom and this time of year seems relevant to us, that this is a time to educate young women going into their prom night or whatever, that some of the things that we wanted to share is an empowered culture of feminine women, or feminine men. So I want to say be on the lookout for that website by name if we can get it. We don't know yet that we can. But beyond that, open up hopefully another round on the stack of ways that you all think that we could go back to our different occupies and encourage this. If there's women's groups, if what men think they could do to help. Traditionally, most of us are still occupying a space that would be considered a community plaza, and Mayfair celebrations usually would have a maypole set up in their community plaza. In Gainesville, long ago we used to actually do that, and probably we'll figure out a way to do it this year. So creating just the maypole ritual itself as part of that May 1st strike, and that's the positive that we're drawing to. We all are in agreement that we're not going to work that day, but what we are going to do, hopefully, if we can get some momentum for this, and I wonder if it's spontaneously happening in other parts of the country because it's just so obvious, is create a ritual for that day that celebrates this and celebrates women.
Anybody want to get on stack, especially people who haven't spoke?
So, this is for the idea of disseminating the information. Definitely, My idea for it would just be a working group tied into it, obviously, just as non-gender is there, where it would be just a working group to where it would be an outreach group, but devoted to that. That's the best way to do it, before we leave tonight, like not form that right now here, but when we're out of this, the people that think that they can, like definitely, just come together. It would only take one of you from each town, and just know that each of you are like assigning you each day to like. I start using Twitter now. To get to the point real quick, I start using Twitter now. So what I do is to promote American Spring, I might just show up while I'm online, checking my email, 5 minutes, just you flood it with different organizations that share interest or whatever with you too, or which can also be a lot of Occupy's use it, and you direct tweets out at them all about it. And so while you were telling other people, all the people following them get to see, like Twitter is an awesome social network. And it gives each person from that team 5 minutes a day, and that's actually, if it was a 5-man team, that's 25 minutes spent just blasting out tweets to people, and that will get it out. Suggestion.
Anyone else? Ben?
Oh, 5 minutes. Oh.
If anyone else wanted to talk, I just didn't want to close up without saying this. So one example we talked about is consensual hugs. I had an experience a couple weeks ago in the plaza where somebody fresh off a rainbow gathering ran up to me. I'd never met the man, and attacked me with a hug. And I had to explain to him that was absolutely not okay to do. Hugs. We all think hugs are good, but hugs need to be consensual. And so bringing that into our culture, because a lot of us do like to hug each other, but remembering that there's kind of a physical, I'm offering you a hug, are you taking it? And so we talked about giving touch and taking touch. There's, we can offer to give somebody a massage, but maybe it's because we want to be touching that person. And it's different from, do you need a massage? Can I do this for you? So just really getting into the communication of what may seem like a benign, friendly, platonic, really still needs to have a lot of consent under it. And so that's something we want to make a really simple gesture that you could all take back and explain what we're talking about.
Evan?
Yeah, I wanted to offer to whatever people thought an appropriate venue would do to do a workshop in intention sensing. I have a teacher's license in several different martial arts and internal arts, and some of the cool stuff we do is like blindfolded sword dodging, figuring out which stick that's been used over the course of the exercise belongs to which person while blindfolded by feeling the energy and that kind of thing. And some of us just don't have those skills. Some people really don't realize that that's not consensual, and it's totally not okay for them to do it, but I would be willing to offer a workshop, and anyone else that feels like they have something to offer there, please help co-facilitate that, if you would, to help people figure out the nuances of nonverbal consent and when it's there and when it's not. I think that would be a cool thing for us to do.
I wanted to add to the list that I saw on our information table with all the no's, maybes, I don't know, no answer. The very last thing on that list should have been yes means yes. Everything else means no. We need to modify that list. I've been over the same issue with other people and totally in agreement with everyone here. And I wonder something. Yes means yes. Nothing else means yes.
Scott?
I'd like to mention that Flowers in Their Hair comes with lots of resources, that there are web-based resources and flyers and graphics and written text that's already been worked through and processed, consensed by groups like ours, that a local group can adapt or adopt. There are a few ground rules that using that name might mean. If you want to use that name in your own city, please do, and be consistent so that it means the same thing from city to city. I encourage people to use these tools in addition to doing that work, and that we will make that available through our electronic means, through SERCO and through Occupy Gainesville and through, I'm sure, Tampa, and we'll make that available.
1 minute.
Stack is clear. Would anybody like to get on Stack?
just, I'm gonna say that, I definitely would like to be part of that outreach team. I'm not directly associated with any town, but I like that and I'd like to help promote it, so I'll talk to you. I'm just throwing it out there. And 35 seconds.
Point of love?
Point of love.
Shall we move on? Yes. Okay, before we do that, there's been some changes to the agenda, so I just want to run through what we have left to make sure that things are in the order that people want. We did the report backs, we just did the flowers in their hair thing. Next, we'll be talking about the people's plan for 10 minutes. And then May Day for 17 minutes, May Day coordination. And then the SERCO statement for 2 minutes. And then appreciation and amendments for 10 minutes. We all like the agenda. I couldn't.
The appreciation is the...
Oh, I meant, yes, announcements, yes.
I think there was a desire to have the May Day discussion right after flowers in their hair, if I remember correctly from earlier.
Right, that's why I'm
I just wanted to
asking.
point that out.
So,
I would like to add at least a 5-minute open floor to the end of this.
do we all like open floor? I need fingers, guys. Okay. Also, how do we feel about talking about May Day next instead of talking about the people's plan? Because that's what we originally did, but the agenda got kind of muddled based on what happened. Okay, I'll do that in a second. Open mic. What do we say, 10 minutes? Or 5
That
minutes?
works perfectly fine. I don't care either way, as long as there's some time.
Alright, and then... So, May Day.
How long?
17 minutes.
17.
I don't even understand, so...
Timer began.
I was going to ask if people have an idea of what they think May Day is, or what they're planning, or what they're doing to speak up, because I don't really know a lot about what's going on or what is being planned.
Katerina, then Tara, Katie.
So what we're doing in Tallahassee, and what could be maybe things other towns want to do, and maybe we could do as a collective, is to promote our local business that day. And if we're going to buy anything, like anything that we would usually buy on a certain day or whatever, that to buy local, as to not necessarily inconvenience every single business, and realize that we would be hurting local business and taking the time to put them in that category when they're not necessarily, I don't necessarily feel that they're in that category, but it's more so to recognize that they're a part of our community too, and so we could extend just another part of ourselves to another part of ourselves, so ourselves to the local businesses, and also the regular other strike business to do that kind of thing. So that's kind of what we had in mind. It'd be cool to make flyers about that, about various in your local place, what businesses have what, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's something, at least community based, that we had in mind. So.
Okay, what Beltane basically is the old-fashioned pagan holiday of fertility. It is the planting season, it is fertility rites, it is a huge festival that pagans have been celebrating for thousands and thousands of years. I've been celebrating in Beltane festivals for the last 10, 12 years. I'm a priestess and also a witch. And for us, Beltane is a very sacred, very solemn day. It is a day of the festivity of fertility of the new beginning, of spring, of warmth coming back, the sun god, meeting with the earth goddess. You see the dagger and the chalice. That's the symbol of the union of the two. That's what Beltane is all about, basically. If you want the historical belief in Beltane, never minding what it has become throughout the years since, whether you want to call it May Day or Solidarity Day with local businesses, the major thing is Beltane is one of the 8 major pagan holidays throughout the year.
Hi everybody, my name is Katie. I'm from Gainesville. So May Day definitely started out, as a pagan holiday and still is, but it has gone through some transformations because of different things that have happened historically. A long time ago, it was definitely, against the aristocracy because there would be the king and queen of May Day, which is the people electing their own king and queen, against the aristocracy. And then in 1886 in Chicago, people have heard of the Haymarket Martyrs. This was just a giant struggle for the 8-hour workday, and actually 8 people died over this struggle. And so internationally it's now known as International Labor Day, but in the United States that history is so hidden, and through different presidents and stuff, it's been everything from Loyalty Day to Patriot Day, basically trying to hide the radicalism that actually originated in the United States in 1886 during that struggle for the 8-hour workday. So that's why people, call for you, not to go to work on May 1st, and for, labor solidarity actions and things like that around May 1st. So in Gainesville, I know that the Industrial Workers of the World, the IWW, they've already got the Central Labor Council and the International Socialist Organization, which I organize with, on board, and they've got the permit for our Bo Diddley Plaza area. And so it's going to be, a march down to Bo Diddley Plaza, and then a celebration with speakers talking about, different campaigns and things that are going on, and depending on who gets involved, there'll be a maypole also celebrating that side of it. There'll be food sharing and things like that. So that's the general idea of a little bit of the history behind it, and then the specifics in Gainesville. And I know in Gainesville they're already having planning meetings. I know they've had at least 2 so far, so if people want to get involved, the planning meetings are happening at the Civic Media Center, and so it's on the CMC's website, but also we can talk more about that, and I can get you in contact with the IWW people too.
Rich has a direct
And
response.
Kenzie and I and Food Not Bombs are gonna make some food for that. So anyone in Gainesville who wants to donate or just help us that day, get in touch.
Observe the correct direct response.
11 minutes.
Does anybody else want to get on staff right at this second? It's 3 o'clock.
I thought I was. Okay. To piggyback a little on what other Gainesville activists have said about this day and what's planned already, the Wobblies did ask me to priestess that ritual as I have in the past in the plaza. So there will be that component, and we will make sure that it is open and accessible as we do that. As a member, a delegate to the Labor Council, member of ISO, supporter of the Wobblies, Occupy Gainesville, etc. I have many roles that day. I doubt I'll be able to. I don't want to separate them, but I doubt I'll be able to fill all of them in the way that everyone might have expectations of. So please, Gainesville folks, volunteer.
Yeah, I was asked by the CMC to help out with the pagan part of that, so Zot, you and I will be working together closely that day.
Here's an interesting thing to pose to everyone about May Day. Is there something that maybe we want to all collectively do, maybe even if we're not in the same space, but that we all collectively would like to do in solidarity as a state showing our support for the strike? So like, for example, something I thought of just like 2 seconds ago, we could do, like an absurdist theater thing, like in a relevant space at the exact same time or something that we agree upon, or like, this could be something that maybe we can coordinate in planning or whatever, but, it doesn't have to be something to that degree, but I guess is there something that perhaps we want to all do all together, like including the things that we already have planned, but that would, you know, have us all together like that.
So, I mean, kind of in line with that, I was just going to point out that there is a call for a general strike on that day, and Occuprint has a bunch of really awesome posters that they'll ship any occupation. So I don't know if folks really just want to push that idea and be in solidarity with